You ever been scrolling online and you see something that just seems way too good to be true? A deal so amazing you just know there has to be a catch. Well, today we are diving headfirst into an online auction that had everybody asking that exact question.
So, take a look at this. It's an eBay listing for a 19th century US postage stamp. And the title isn't shy. It's basically screaming that this is a $10,000 rarity. And people were biting. It attracted a ton of attention. But the real question is this a hidden gem? Or is it a very clever trap?
And get this, when this picture was snapped, the bidding was already over $400 with plenty of time still left on the clock. This right here is the heart of the mystery. If this stamp is really worth thousands of dollars, why on earth is it selling for just a tiny fraction of that? Let's break it all down.
Okay, so what is it about this one little piece of paper that can make it a legendary find in the stamp collecting world? Why all the fuss?
The entire massive potential value of this stamp, well, it all comes down to one tiny, almost invisible feature from the 1860s. It's called a Z grill, and that little detail is what separates a common old stamp from a collector's holy grail.
So what in the world is a grill, and why is the Z version so incredibly important? To figure that out, we got to get just a little bit technical.
You see, back in the day, people would try to wash the cancellation ink off of stamps so they could use them again. Pretty sneaky, right? Well, to stop this, the post office started using a machine to press this grid of tiny little bumps into the paper. This grill would break the paper fibers, making the ink soak in for good. They tried a bunch of different patterns, and the Z grill happens to be one of the absolute rarest.
And here you can see exactly what the experts are looking at. On the left, you've got the front of the stamp from the auction, but on the right, that's the back. See that embossed kind of waffle-like pattern? That is the supposed Z grill. The question is it the real deal?
And this is the point where a trained eye starts to see some problems. Big problems. When professional analysts looked at this exact listing, the whole hidden treasure story started to fall apart, and fast.
I mean, the first and most glaring red flag is just the price itself. A genuine, unused Z grill of this type could easily fetch 5, maybe even 6 figures at a major auction house. So seeing one on eBay for a few $100s is, well, to an expert, it's beyond suspicious.
Then you look at the language in the listing's title, the phrase, color-proof normal. What does that even mean? In the stamp world, it means nothing. It's totally non-standard terminology. It sounds fancy and technical, but it's basically gibberish for this kind of stamp. That suggests the seller is using confusing marketing buzzwords instead of, accurate terms.
Now this is where the details get crazy important. To an expert, that grill pattern on the back, it looks too perfect. A real grill from 150 years ago has a very specific, slightly uneven look to it because of the old machinery they used. This one, it looks more like a modern embossing, which, by the way, is a super common way that fakers create forgeries.
But honestly, the single biggest, brightest red flag waving in the wind is this. There's no certificate. For a stamp this rare, a certificate of authenticity isn't a nice to have. It's absolutely essential. It's the only way to prove the grill is right, the paper and ink are right, and the condition is legitimate. Without it, you're not buying a stamp. You're just buying a story.
So, with all these red flags piling up, how does a professional dealer figure out what this stamp is actually worth? Well, their calculation is pretty brutal, and it completely ignores that $10,000 claim. So here's the bottom line. Without proof, the value just collapses. An expert really sees 3 possibilities. Conservatively, it's a fake, worth maybe $150 as a curiosity. Realistically, okay, some gamblers might pay up to $300 for the thrill of the chase. That $20,000 value only exists in the almost impossible world where it gets certified as genuine.
And here is the punchline from the professionals. After you factor in the cost of getting it certified and the overwhelming, sky-high odds of it being a fake, the absolute maximum rational bid a dealer would place is just $50. $50. Anything more than that is just a straight-up gamble.
But of course, online auctions aren't always driven by rational experts, are they? No, they're driven by hope, by excitement, by the fear of missing out on a huge score. So, what happened when that auction clock finally hit 0?
So let's remember, the expert's logical ceiling was $50. The bidding was already way past $400 before the final day. So where did it actually end up?
$610. After a whole flurry of last-minute bids, the final price landed at $610. 27 bids from 16 different bidders. Let's just put those two numbers side by side for a second. The cold, logical, rational valuation from a professional, $50. The final, emotional price paid by a hopeful bidder, $610. That is more than 12 times the expert's absolute maximum.
So what does that huge gap tell us? It really shows us the fundamental difference in mindset between two kinds of people you find in the collectibles world.
Look, the person who paid $610 didn't really buy a stamp. They bought a lottery ticket. They paid for that tiny, thrilling glimmer of a chance that every expert was wrong and they had just scored a $20,000 treasure for pocket change. This wasn't disciplined collecting based on evidence. It was pure, high-stakes speculation.
And that really brings us to the final question, doesn't it? Now that you've seen the evidence, the expert analysis, and the final price, you kind of have to ask yourself, are you a collector or are you a gambler? Knowing everything we've just gone over, would you have clicked that bid button?